I think I've been influenced by these projects that I've done with Deutsche Grammophon and the National Theatre in a way that I expanded my view of structure. So I left writing pop songs for a while, and that gave me, it felt like anyway, a perspective, a freshness that I wanted, that I was hoping to get. But while you're doing it, you're not thinking what these projects are giving you. You're just busy, because they were all happening almost simultaneously. The musical was happening while Night of Hunters was happening, and then while Gold Dust was happening. So I was working and collaborating with lots of people in two different worlds at the same time. And I would write these songs going back and forth to all these projects, sort of like a secret processing of what was happening. Well, I guess when we were in the studio, there was a freedom, because we were able to break away from the structures that I was working under for Night of Hunters. That was variations on classical themes. So therefore, that was a certain way of thinking. And musical theater, I had been studying all kinds of musicals over the 20th century period. So of course, when you are writing music and then you're in the studio, I didn't have to be writing songs that could be arranged in a musical style. The Light Princess isn't a pop musical. It's a proper musical theater score. So when you think of musicals sometimes today, you're thinking of catalog pop musicals or a type of formula pop musical. But it was more in the tradition of Sondheim, more in the tradition of, those were my guides, Bernstein, Rodgers and Hart, Rodgers and Hammerstein. They were my guiding lights. And these songs were inspired by Queen and the Beatles and Blue, Joni Mitchell, and late 60s arrangements, George Martin, early 70s. That was the driving force. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Johnny Cash. Usually everything is built at first on the piano, and then discussions start happening. For instance, in Trouble's Lament, it started to really lend itself to a Southern blues interpretation. And there's discussion that happens. And I begin to hear sounds from the guitars, and he's showing me something. And then I start thinking, well, what if I take the piano out of it here and put it on the Rhodes here, and then the Hammond, and then it's a back and forth. It starts to be really collaborative. And that's how this record was built out. This record wasn't built jamming, playing together. This was built all piano first, then taking those pianos out and keeping them in certain places, and then redoing them based around rhythm tracks being built. So it was, each song got done in its specific way, but it wasn't by just jamming and then recording that. It was really arranging the sections and finding the parts, finding parts that work. So we would play together and realize, well, that part isn't working, so let's change it here. And then I'd run on a different keyboard instrument, and then different guitars got picked up, and we were finding the parts first in the mids. So the melodic, not the bass and the drums first, but the mids, melodically, what was happening quarterly. So really, piano guitar was the center of everything on this record, and then everything got else figured out around it. From my perspective, I wanted to come from, because I have one foot on the European side, one foot on the American side when it comes to this, hearing perspective on both sides of the Atlantic. And I think some Americans find him, even liberals, find the way he went about it to cross the line. Not that the subject, if you're talking to liberals, the subject should have been brought up. We have to talk about, is there a time when writers, people who are asking questions, if all of our information, all of our emails are being looked at, if we are planning to destroy civilization, then fair enough. But where do our security forces and our governments start thinking, well, you know, these guys are asking certain questions that are maybe compromising our position, and we don't want these guys to be asking these questions or stirring it up anymore. My concern, as somebody that doesn't believe in censorship, my concern was, when would boundaries be crossed so that pressure could be put on a person like me or a person like you? And we're not political writers. Maybe you guys are, but I'm talking about there are all types of people where pressure could be put on us to stop asking the questions. When can that line get crossed? If everybody can read what we're thinking or what we're writing or our medical records, when could that be used in a way to shut us down? Well, it could be. It could be. That's why the second verse is about the tax man, because pressure can be put on from all sides so that you are having to feel real heat. And it doesn't look like you're being targeted. It just doesn't. There's no fingerprints on it from any government. You don't know, but you're feeling the heat, okay? So I wanted to bring up those issues. Some Americans, even liberals, felt like how Snowden did it. I know he's a hero to some, fair enough. He's not a hero to everyone, not that it shouldn't have been brought up. But I think some people think it's a bit laissez-faire to give him the big superhero moniker. So I would say a place of neutrality is wise, that perhaps these discussions need to happen, exposure needed to happen, but in what way? These are questions. So I thought, if you're truth-telling pies, Putin has to have this pie, the Americans have to have the pie, I have to have the pie, Snowden's got to have the pie. Because agenda, my friends, you always have to ask about agenda, don't you? Really, from all sides,